beans. Of course, that's true of all foods, right? When we describe foods, son los frijolitos con su chilito, hecho de que es así de tomatito y cilantito and so forth. Anyway, by the way, this TL, as we'll see, Nahuatl nouns always consist of a stem, a root, and a suffix that marks them for singular or plural. This distinguishes it from English and Spanish. In English and in Spanish, we do not mark nouns for singular or plural. For singular. We mark them for plural. The S, right? Boys, girls, cats, dogs, houses. Likewise in Spanish. Casas, libros, plumas, lápices, mujeres, hombres. But what about the singular? Mujer, are, hombre, y, niño, o, niña, calcetín, and so forth. There's really no marker for the singular. Likewise in English. Boy, Y, girl, L, dog, G, cat, T. There's no marker for the singular. Nahuatl has a marker for the plural and a marker for the singular. The first of these is the TL. It's so common. So many nouns in Nahuatl end in TL because that's the marker. And by the way, that TL went through a process of transformation and eventually winds up in Spanish as what? TE, yeah. So, tomate, the TE is the original TL. Coyote, the TE is the original TL. Chocolate, likewise. Tecolote, the same thing. Guajolote, and so forth. All right, now, the TL is always part of the syllable. It's never off by itself. So you divide the words into syllables. Last syllable, stress goes here. Any volunteers?
Coyote.
Coyote. Everyone, coyote?
Coyote.
Do not ever say coyote. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Go to Mexico City. Anthropologists sometimes say coyote. Right? Tourist guides will sometimes say coyote. When I say sometimes, I'm talking out of 100, maybe 4 or 5. That's still unacceptable. But you come across it. And certainly the general population, the lay population, will have a tendency to pronounce this as in Spanish. What happened actually is the following. This was the formal pronunciation of coyote. But informally, coyote, and then it went from there to coyote. That's what happened. Okay, one other one here. Last syllable, second from last. Everyone, toma.
Toma.
Very good. X represents the sound of SH. You have to consider the following, that in 16th century Spanish, the SH sound was still part of the language, generalized in the language. It disappeared, that sound disappeared in urban Spanish. It survives in some rural areas, let's say in Mexico, in some northern areas, some border towns in particular, so that the word mucho, perhaps you heard me say mucho, you heard that? Mucho, or Chihuahua. That sound is an archaic sound. That is, it used to be part of Spanish, no longer part of it in the cities. Now, how did the Spaniards represent that sound in their language? Using an X. So that Ximenez, that's the way it was pronounced in the 16th century, was spelled that way. Ximenez, with an X, right? The sound was dropped in the cities, it disappeared, and consequently, there was a spelling change to reflect the pronunciation change, right? And in Spanish, the X began to represent another sound. Now, in the 16th century, when Spaniards heard the SH sound in Nahuatl, such as this, Xalisco, it was natural to use the X. Xalisco. The sounds have not changed in Nahuatl, consequently, the X is still used for the sound. Xalisco. Right? Everybody, Xalisco? Xalisco. The original name for Jalisco. Place name, right? Place in front of the sands. By the way, Mexico, Mexico. Right? Of course, Mexicans claim that they want to spell it with an X for what? Nationalistic reasons, for matters of pride. That's not going far enough, right? Go back to the original pronunciation. As we'll see, Mexico. That means nothing anymore. In the 16th century, Spaniards used to spell this with an X because the X actually reflected the SH sound. Once the SH sound disappeared, then the spelling changed to reflect the new pronunciation. All Mexicans are doing is what? Going back to the spelling, but they're disregarding the original pronunciation. I would say, go back to the original pronunciation. I mean, if it's a question of national pride, why not? Last syllable, second from last, stress goes here. SH, everybody, Chicama? Chicama. You heard of Chicama? That's the original word, Chicama. And I'm sure that you've heard of this one. Last syllable, second from last, stress goes here. Everyone, Shochi? Shochi. Where that is? Flower. I know at least 7 or 8 women who have this name. They all pronounce it differently. Xochitl, Chochi, Xochitl, but now it is Xochitl. Xochitl. Okay, this letter represents point of contention. I would pronounce it as a Spanish J. That's close enough for something like an English H. There are 2 sounds. One is the glottal stop. For example, in English, if you say the word for manzana, say that in English. No, in English. Apple, right? You don't say apple. You say apple. There's a pause there, right? How do you say cooperar in English? Go up, right? That stop, that glottal stop, is something used in now. Now, in some of these early manuscripts, the glottal stop is not represented at all. In some, it's represented with an apostrophe. In some, with another symbol. Modern day scholars sometimes represent it with an H. But they also represent the aspiration, right? The English H, or close to the Spanish H, with the same symbol. Now, I mean, we can split hairs over this, but I think it's more important to learn vocabulary, learn the structure of the language, and to quibble over whether this is supposed to be a glottal stop or whether it's supposed to be an aspiration. All right? And to top it off, in some varieties of Nahuatl, they don't use a glottal stop. Right? So I'm not going to argue over that. Whenever you come across an H, at least in the workbooks that I use, and in most of the publications, either pronounce it as a Spanish J, or English H, or if you want, as a glottal stop. All right?